Michelle Obama's $8.5 million soda deal was supposed to be quiet. Then the leak dropped, backlash exploded, Trump attacked, and her legacy cracked, until one final confession changed everything. At 6:28 a.m., a Hill reporter posted a single line. Sources confirm Michelle Obama signs $8.5 million endorsement deal with Pi Soda. It was dismissed as satire, until Pi Soda confirmed it. The ad dropped at noon. Michelle, radiant, laughing, held a can labeled, "Good vibes, better bubbles." She looked younger than the presidency had left her. The internet didn't buy it. By dusk, #MichelleOut was trending. It wasn't just conservative outrage. Public health advocates, teachers, even some progressive writers called it deeply disappointing. The contradiction was too sharp. This was the woman who once removed soda from school vending machines and called sugary drinks a slow-moving poison. Now, she was the face of it. For 2 days, there was only silence. No clarification. No correction. Then came a terse announcement. Michelle Obama would appear voluntarily before the House Subcommittee on Public Trust and Advocacy. That alone was unusual. Voluntary testimony by a former First Lady? Something was wrong. She entered the hearing room in a navy suit. Her face looked calm, but not relaxed. The first question came within minutes. Representative Karen Whitmore asked directly, "Mrs. Obama, did you accept $8.5 million from Pi Soda, a brand you once labeled toxic?" Michelle's voice was steady. "I agreed to a partnership highlighting their zero sugar line, which promotes healthier alternatives." The reaction was instant. Headlines ran wild. Michelle deflects. From First Lady to first betrayal. The nuance of zero sugar was lost in the noise. Behind closed doors, Donald Trump watched from a private committee lounge. Invited by Republicans to testify later, he turned to his aide and muttered, "She spent years calling soda poison. Now she's cashing the check." Michelle still had defenders. Some nutritionists said zero sugar drinks were arguably less harmful. In a different year, the argument might have landed. But not in 2025. Not in a climate trained to sniff out hypocrisy in milliseconds. Then, as Michelle spoke about working from the inside to change toxic industries, a staffer approached Representative Whitmore mid-session and handed her a folded note. Whitmore opened it. Her expression changed. She turned back toward the witness table. "Mrs. Obama, we've received a sworn statement from a former aide regarding the Pi Soda negotiations. Would you like to respond before I read it?" Michelle's hands stilled. "No," she said. The room went silent. Whitmore read aloud. "Michelle Obama was fully aware of the backlash. She said if we frame it as sugar-free, they'll get over it. This is too big to pass up. When I push back, she said, people forget fast. If they don't, they never like me anyway." Michelle didn't flinch. "I don't recall those words," she said. "But Marcus was part of those discussions. Sometimes framing overshadows principle. I regret that. It wasn't a denial. It wasn't an apology. It was, if anything, a strategy." Then the door opened. "Mr. Donald Trump, please step forward." The room changed. Michelle stayed seated. Trump walked slowly to the second chair. He didn't speak to her. He didn't have to. He looked at the committee. "I'll keep this simple," he said. "She sold out?" Trump continued, holding up a printed sheet. "Here's a list of school districts that removed Pi Soda products because of Michelle Obama's campaign. Now those same students are seeing her hold the same brand. What message are we sending?" Michelle didn't speak. Her fingers rested still on the table. Reporters typed furiously. Live feeds ran without commentary. The hearing was no longer about policy. It had become something else. The committee paused briefly, then resumed. Representative Whitmore leaned forward. "Mrs. Obama, do you believe this endorsement serves public health in the same way your Let's Move campaign did?" Michelle replied carefully. "I believe that promoting a sugar-free alternative could represent progress. Not perfection. I now understand that framing wasn't enough. But now was too late." By the time she answered, the video clip of Trump's line, "She sold out," had already gone viral. Protesters gathered outside. Some held signs quoting Michelle's own speeches from 2010. One read, "Our children deserve better." Another simply said, "Trust matters." Then came the second session. Tighter. Colder. A new document was introduced, verified by the committee, a testimony from a former Pi Soda executive. The statement was clear. Mrs. Obama's team instructed us to avoid references to nutrition. We were told to focus on themes of empowerment, diversity, redemption. Health messaging was considered off-brand. Michelle responded without hesitation. Those decisions were made at the marketing agency level. I wasn't briefed on every tactic. It sounded plausible. Too plausible. The public had heard that line before, from too many public figures, too many scandals. Then came Isabel Grant's spreadsheet. A bonus clause in Michelle's contract, $3.1 million tied to social media engagement metrics. You weren't an influencer, Whitmore said flatly. You were the First Lady of the United States. Michelle didn't deny it. It's a standard clause, she answered. Trump didn't wait for his turn. He leaned into the mic. She wasn't selling sneakers. She was selling trust. That line landed harder than the first. Even sympathetic outlets replayed it. As the hearing adjourned, one last document emerged, a Slack message from Michelle's post-White House team. Should we run this by the health groups from 2012? Reply. No. We're too far along. They'll only complicate things. The screenshots hit every major outlet within the hour. And Michelle, still seated, still composed, answered the final question of the day with one line. I underestimated how fragile trust really is. Outside, the protests doubled. Inside, her image cracked. By morning, Michelle Obama's trust rating had dropped 19 points in a single national poll. No single scandal, not even from political figures, had ever moved numbers that fast. But the committee wasn't finished. The final day began with surprise testimony. A former liaison between the Obama Foundation and Pi Soda had requested to speak under protected status. Her name was Natalie Brooks, a quiet but well-known figure in philanthropy circles. She had once helped design the very school lunch guidelines Michelle had championed. Now, she stood before the nation, visibly tense, holding a thick folder. I worked under Mrs. Obama for nearly a decade. She began. I believed in her mission. But I can no longer stay silent. The room stilled. These emails, Natalie said, lifting printed sheets, show that her legal team negotiated not just the endorsement fee, but narrative control, including use of Michelle's school nutrition footage to support Pi Soda's rebranding. An additional $950,000 was routed through a nonprofit linked to her media company. Michelle stood abruptly. That nonprofit funds food programs for underserved families. Natalie nodded. Yes. But Pi Soda's internal memos referred to the payment as a reputation buffer. It was about shielding the campaign by leveraging Mrs. Obama's charitable image. It was the hardest moment yet. Even Trump, seated beside Michelle, didn't smile. He simply folded his arms and stared. Natalie's final blow was quiet. I raised concerns, she said. I asked if we should walk away. Michelle told me, this is the grown-up table now. We don't pass on money because it feels awkward. Michelle tried to speak, then stopped. For the first time, she had no reply. Outside, the media reacted instantly. MSNBC's banner read, Betrayal from Within. Fox's was simpler, sold out by her own. But the worst was still coming. During the lunch recess, an anonymous email arrived at the committee's secure server. Verified through federal credentials, it had come from a whistleblower inside the Office of Public Partnerships. The email was from Michelle's personal account, dated 3 months before the ad campaign launched. It read, This campaign isn't about soda. It's about influence. If we can steer perception toward progressive partnership, the product won't matter. Let's move forward. The chair read it aloud in full. No one interrupted. Michelle spoke slowly. That email is out of context. You don't know what came before it, or what came after. But context didn't matter. Not when the phrase, the product won't matter, was already printed across every television churn. The chair closed the hearing with a final statement. We are forwarding this matter to the Ethics Oversight Board for federal review. Michelle closed her eyes. Just for a second. Not in defiance. Not in shame. In resignation. The hearing was over. The news cycle wasn't. The myth had cracked. And now, it was falling in real time. That night, just as networks began winding down coverage, a low-resolution video appeared online. The title was blunt. Michelle Obama Pi Soda Strategy Meeting, full audio. Posted by an anonymous account named RealFedLeaks, the clip showed a private conference room. Around the table sat Pi Soda executives. At the head, Michelle Obama. She wasn't smiling. Her tone wasn't promotional. It was businesslike. The audio was unmistakably her. "Look," Michelle said, voice calm. "I don't drink soda. I still won't. But that's not the point. This isn't about what I consume. This is about reshaping the conversation." There was no pause. No hesitation. Just strategy. Pi wants a redemption arc. They need one. And I need to stay relevant. That's not cynicism. That's business. Silence. Then, if we do this right, it'll look like evolution, not contradiction. The executives nodded. She continued. We'll lead with empowerment. Diversity. Second chances. People love that. They'll forget about sugar if the story feels right. The clip ended there. Abruptly. Quietly. But the damage wasn't quiet. Within an hour, it was on every major news site. Subtitles. Transcripts. Analysis. CNN called it a credibility collapse in real time. Fox called it confirmation. Even NPR, measured as always, called it deeply corrosive to public trust. In Chicago, Michelle sat alone in her office, watching the video replay on mute. Her phone buzzed nonstop. Texts. Missed calls. Press requests. She answered none. Back in Florida, Trump leaned back in his chair and said to a staffer, "She gave us the rope. We just let her tie the knot." Public discourse shifted overnight. People stopped debating whether the endorsement was defensible. They debated whether anything had ever been real. A former aide tweeted, "She didn't just endorse soda. She endorsed the idea that strategy mattered more than belief." Another wrote simply, "She taught Big Soda how to win." Behind the scenes, Michelle's allies scrambled. Corporate partnerships were paused. Planned speeches cancelled. Staff began drafting statements, but every line sounded like spin. Because the story wasn't about pie soda anymore. It was about whether the public could still believe in anyone who spoke with such precision, behind closed doors, about how to make truth disappear. And for the first time in over a decade, Michelle's name no longer stood for certainty. It stood for doubt. 2 days after the strategy video detonated, Michelle Obama made an unexpected move. No legal team. No PR handlers. No studio lighting. Just one announcement. Michelle Obama will appear live on American Forum tonight. No scripts. No edits. The broadcast aired from a modest DC studio. Across the country, people watched from airports, dorm rooms, living rooms. They didn't expect redemption. They expected confirmation, of failure, of cynicism, of the final unraveling. Susan Hallberg, a seasoned journalist with a reputation for avoiding pleasantries, opened without a greeting. "Michelle, we've seen the hearings. We've seen the video. Why are you here?" "I'm tired of hiding behind press releases," Michelle said. Her voice wasn't defiant. It was quiet. "I'm here as me. Not a brand. Not a legacy. Just me." Hallberg continued. "Did you say the things we heard in the leaked video?" "Yes," Michelle answered. "And I regret how I said them. But I won't pretend I didn't say them." Across social media, responses split sharply. Some found it courageous. Others said it came too late to matter. Hallberg didn't ease up. "You admitted you needed to stay relevant. You put influence over integrity. Why?" Michelle paused, then leaned forward. "Because I thought the mission would survive the method. I thought the cause would outweigh the means. I was wrong." It wasn't clean. It wasn't polished. But for the first time since the scandal broke, her words didn't sound like a defense. Backstage, producers whispered, "This might actually work." In Florida, watching from Mar-a-Lago, Trump muttered, "She's trying to flip it." Hallberg asked one final question. "Donald Trump said she gave us the rope. Is he right?" Michelle's response came after a long silence. "I handed them the rope. But I'm not hanging myself with it. I'm standing here." She didn't blink. She didn't try to soften it. Hallberg's last question. "Do you still believe in the health mission that built your legacy?" Michelle's voice cracked slightly. "I do. And that's what hurts the most. I let strategy cloud the thing I actually care about." She looked directly into the camera. "To every parent who trusted me, I failed to protect the clarity of that trust. I blurred the line. I own that completely." There was no applause. No soundtrack. Just silence. And then the screen went black. By midnight, the clip had been viewed over 24 million times. Some called it her final reckoning. Others, a calculated retreat. But everyone agreed on one thing. She had finally spoken without filters. The question was it too late? The next morning, America didn't wake up to analysis. It woke up to silence. No new statements. No press tour. Just one image spreading across the internet: Michelle Obama sitting alone on the steps of her Chicago townhouse, Dawn behind her, hands folded. There was no logo. No caption. Just a 3-minute video. Her voice was calm. Clear. Tired. "People have asked why I did it," she said. "The truth is, because I thought I could balance impact and image. Because I was afraid of being forgotten. Because I convinced myself that strategy could replace sincerity." She didn't look into the lens like a performer. She just spoke. "I was wrong." It spread immediately, not because it shocked, but because it didn't. There were no edits. No background music. Just one public figure acknowledging, too late, that she had crossed a line and kept walking. And still, one voice remained missing. Barack Obama. Throughout the hearings, the leaks, the backlash, he had stayed completely silent. No interviews. No tweets. No presence. Until that night. Just past midnight, there was a knock at Michelle's door. No Secret Service. No aides. No cameras. She opened it herself. And there he was. Dressed simply, holding nothing. They sat in silence for a long time, not touching, not talking. Just existing in the same room. For years, they had shared stages, spotlights, speeches. Tonight, they shared something smaller, the quiet aftermath. Finally, Michelle said, "You saw it." Barack nodded. "All of it." She waited. Then asked, "And?" Barack exhaled. "You were honest. I just wish it hadn't taken so long." She looked away. "I thought I could manage the fallout. Handle it before it turned into a hurricane." He didn't argue. He didn't explain. He only said, "You taught people to believe in better. That means they held you to a higher standard. You don't get to turn that off when it's inconvenient." Then he stood, walked to the window, and spoke without looking back. "I'm not here to shame you. I just want to ask one thing." She waited. "Did you do it because you believed in the shift, or because you were afraid of fading?" Michelle didn't answer right away. But her silence was its own confession. Finally, she said, barely above a whisper, "Both." Barack nodded. Slowly. "No judgment. Just truth." "Then say that to them. Don't polish it. Just say it." By sunrise, she did. Not to a network. Not to a stage. Just a phone camera, propped on her front steps. No script. And in that final message, she said exactly what Barack had told her to. Not to fix what was broken. But because truth, even late, was all she had left. Later that day, the Ethics Oversight Board issued its ruling. No formal sanctions. But a public reprimand. The language was restrained, but precise. Serious lapses in judgment and transparency from a figure entrusted with public influence. Michelle accepted it without appeal. She issued no further statement. No press conference. No tour of reflection. She cancelled her speaking engagements. Returned unspent appearance fees. Quietly withdrew from her remaining brand partnerships. It wasn't a collapse. It was an erasure, deliberate, sober, and almost silent. Donald Trump posted one last message. She blinked. But the damage is done. Michelle didn't reply. She wouldn't. Not now. Possibly not ever. Her final step was taken quietly, stepping away from the advisory board of a children's health nonprofit she had once helped build. The resignation email was one sentence. "This is no longer a role I can serve with the clarity it deserves." In the days that followed, the country moved on, but not untouched. The hearings had become something more than scandal. They had opened questions the public had avoided asking. Can influence coexist with integrity? Does sincerity survive when monetized? And once the illusion cracks, does anything underneath still hold? For Michelle, the cost had been personal. Friends stopped returning calls, not out of anger, but discomfort. Foundations quietly restructured. A school district in Colorado removed her name from a community garden, not with ceremony, but with a quiet memo to staff. Yet some remained loyal. A nutritionist who had once worked on her school lunch initiative wrote a long letter posted publicly. "She gave us a decade of leadership. One error, however large, doesn't erase that." But even that letter ended with a caveat. She should have trusted us enough to be honest from the beginning. That was the theme that wouldn't go away. Not the soda. Not the money. Not even Trump's attacks. It was the time she waited. The belief she didn't realize she carried, not in health, but in her ability to shape perception faster than truth could catch her. And in the end, she miscalculated. Because what broke Michelle Obama's image wasn't a product. It was a moment. When the nation realized she had treated trust like strategy. Not because she meant to. But because, somewhere along the way, the mission became secondary to maintaining the myth. And when the myth finally fell, there was no villain. No scandal of malice. Just one woman, once beloved, now caught in the machinery she once tried to fight. The hearings ended. The news cycle moved on. But somewhere deeper, something remained unsettled. Not the fall itself. But how long it took to admit it had started.